Summa scholars, welcome to the Daily Summa. Today is June 4th during the season of Christmastide. Welcome to my element here. Joe is, let's say, sick today. And we're going to start this thing a little early because I have not had my morning coffee. I ran out of coffee, and the coffee is right inside this shop right here. And it's not open yet. But we're going to do a quick page and go get that morning, sweet morning coffee. If you remember, we're discussing. Oh, this is my element, by the way. Welcome to the Honda Element. I did a few YouTube videos during COVID, after COVID, called In My Element. I think they're still on YouTube. A couple little videos from the Element. I'll probably end up doing those again on my YouTube channel, but we'll see what happens. But as for now, we are sailing this beaver galleon into the unknown quarters of the world. I've got mirrors all around me and things happening. It should be fun. This is also fun. I did this one other time before without Joe, and I think a like a trash truck came behind. There could be people knocking on the door, homeless people begging for money. All kinds of fun stuff could happen. So stay tuned and let's see what happens in this world. But in the world of the Summa, we are definitely talking about God's love today. That is the question. Question 20, God's love. We are on Article 2, whether God loves all things. But we have to do a little house cleaning and wrap up the reply to objection 3 that we were having. Mr. Shimon had an objection, and Thomas is going to hit it up as I get my very beautiful University of St. Thomas Aquinas bookmark thing. That is the chapel at the university where I went, and that is St. Thomas. And let's go, St. Thomas. We're going to go ahead into the top of the page just for funsies, even though it's right in the middle of a sentence. Those that do not imply imperfection, such as love and joy, can be properly predicated of God, though without attributing passion to him, as was said before. Question 19, Article 11. I wonder if you guys ever go back and look. Do you have books? Do you have the Summa at home? You should get the Summa at home. Reply to objection 3. An act of love always tends towards two things: to the good that one wills, and to the person for whom one wills it. Since to love a person is to wish that person good. Isn't that a simple and beautiful sentence? Let's repeat it, even though I'm trying to hurry up and get my coffee. We got to do some teaching here. An act of love always tends towards two things: the good of the one, to the good that one wills, and to the person for whom one wills it. Since to love a person is to wish that person good. Oh, that reminds me of my dear mother. I hope you're watching, Mom. I offer up this learning today for my dear mother. Love you, Mom. Hence, inasmuch as we love ourselves, we wish ourselves good. And so far as, remember, it says, inasmuch as we love ourselves, we wish ourselves good. There are people who don't love themselves. That's a severe perversion of God's reality. And then we all don't love ourselves to varying degrees. Hence, inasmuch as we love ourselves, we wish ourselves good, and so far as possible, union with that good. So love is called the unitive force, even in God, yet without implying composition. Remember what he said before: love either or desire either stretches out towards something. The will is the term I'm looking for. The will either stretches out to obtain something, or it rests in what it has obtained. You're still using your will when your beloved is laying on your chest and you're speaking softly to her. You're resting in what you have. That's still an act of will. And God has complete rest in all that he loves and is. So that's why Thomas is trying to say, the objection was trying to say that God has composition. He's not simple. And as we studied before, there is something called divine simplicity. God is completely simple, although there's arguments about that from other schools of thought. But we're not going there. We're just going a quick flyover, milk of the word, simple stuff. For God, for the good that God wills for himself is no other than himself, who is good by his essence, as shown above in question 6. And by the fact that anyone who loves another, he wills good to that other. Thus he puts the other, as it were, in the place of himself, and regards the good done to him as done to himself. These are just beautiful words of love, guys. I hope you're meditating on this not with your intellect, but with your heart. I hope you're reading Thomas as Lectio Divina. I hope you're listening to this not as some egghead philosopher, but you're listening to it in the beautiful words that this is, especially in as much as he's talking about love. Now, the barista just opened the door, and she's one of my favorite baristas. She's just, the word that I used for her was quirky, but I didn't want her to be offended by that word because it's a beautiful quirkiness. So far, love is okay. So I'm going to repeat that. And the fact that anyone loves another, he wills the good of that other. Thus, he puts the other, as it were, in the place of himself. Now, remember, Thomas is going to go on to talk about the Trinity. So remember that when we're talking about God loving himself. And this is something that Christianity has that I heard Francis Schaeffer, non-Catholic but Christian philosopher who had his Adair in the 60s, I think, and was very informative in my conversion. Francis Schaeffer said that somebody asked him, "Don't you find it hard to be a Christian because of this whole Trinity thing?" And he said, "I would find it hard to be a Christian without the Trinity, because the Trinity shows forth an interior love relationship. Love has to be relational, and it is not fitting for numerous reasons that God needs the creation. Even though Rabbi Freeman did do a video saying God needs us more than we need him. But if you actually watch the video and don't just listen to the title, you actually watch the video, Rabbi Freeman brilliantly, in his rabbinical mind and way, has flipped it, and he's showing how much we need God. He's just doing it in a very clever way. Okay, thus he puts the other, as it were, in the place of himself and regards the good done to him as done to himself. Just like if something happens good to me, my dear mother feels the joy of it as if it happened to herself, or maybe even more so. So far, love is a binding force, since it aggregates another to ourselves and refers his good to our own. And then again, the divine love is a binding force inasmuch as God wills good to others. Yet, it implies no composition. Remember, this was a reply to objection. To the objection. So Thomas is just trying to show Shimon that God does not have composition, that it's possible for him to love and draw to himself without having composition within himself, or being parts. That's what we mean by composition. God is not parts. Even though we have a Trinity, and we'll get into it when we get into the Trinity. But even though we have a Trinity of persons, God is eternal. His essence is one, and the persons are eternally in relationship. There was never a time where they were put together in parts. Article 2, whether God loves all things. Here's the objection from Larry. It seems that God does not love all things, for according to Dionysius, love places the lover outside himself and causes him to pass, as it were, into the object of his love. But it is not admissible to say that God is placed outside of himself and passes into other things. Therefore, it is inadmissible to say that God loves things other than himself. Again, these are the objections making improper distinctions, and Thomas is going to come later and correct them on this. So you just kind of have to ride with it when we're going through the objections. But it still is beautiful, because these objections are using truths from previous questions and articles, or from Dionysius or Aristotle, or some kind of argument from authority. They're using these things that are still true. It's just not lined up rightly, and Thomas has to come and line it up. But still, you have beautiful sayings like, as it were, the lover is outside himself and causes him to pass, as it were, into the object of his love. When we get to that, we'll talk more about the nature of love. That is why the Jewish sages, the Christian mystics, and most famously nowadays Pope John Paul II, but people had said it way before Pope John Paul II, and Jewish people had said it way before the Christians said it. But there's a love relationship in God, and that is why the body, especially in male and female, most closely, it's the clearest icon of the nature of God. When you see love passing into another, giving itself to the other, and that love being so powerful that it creates a third person. Objection 2. Further, the love of God is eternal, but things apart from God are not from eternity, except in God. Therefore, God does not love anything except as it exists in himself, but as existing in him. It is no other than himself. Therefore, God does not love things other than himself. That was a tricky little turn of phrase. We'll see what Thomas does with that. Objection 3, Shimon again. Further, love is twofold, the love namely of desire and the love of friendship. Now, God does not love irrational creatures with the love of desire, since he needs no creature outside himself, true, nor with the love of friendship, since there can be no friendship with irrational creatures, as the philosopher shows. It's trying to say that God doesn't love dogs or birds or rocks or flowers and stuff like that. Therefore, God does not love all things. And then objection 4 coming from Reuben. Further, it is written, Psalm 5, thou hatest all the workers of iniquity. Now, nothing is at the same time hated and loved. Therefore, God does not love all things. He could also quote, Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated. But we're going to see what Thomas does with that. We talked about this and anticipated this yesterday. So, hello, Mr. Big Truck. On the contrary, thou lovest all things that are, and hatest none that which thou hast made. I answer that God loves all existing things, for all existing things, insofar as they exist, are good, since the existence of a thing is itself a good, and likewise, whatever perfection it possesses. Now, it has been shown above in question 19 that God's will is the cause of all things. That's Article 4, since Joe doesn't have the slides up. Now it has been shown in question 19, Article 4, that God's will is the cause of all things. It must needs be, therefore, that a thing has existence, or any kind of good, only inasmuch as it is willed by God. To every existing thing, then, God wills some good. Hence, since to love anything is nothing else than to will good to that thing, it is manifest that God loves everything that exists. Yet, not as we love. Remember, we toggle back and forth between divine and human perspectives, as I've said to you many times before. But not as we love, because since our will is not the cause of the goodness of things, but is moved by it as its object, our love, whereby we will good to anything, is not the cause of its goodness, but conversely, its goodness, whether real or imaginary, calls forth our love, by which we will that it should preserve the good it has, and receive besides the good it has not. And to this end we direct our actions. This is a lot of philosophy speech saying that we will good things. Good things do things to us. They call us forth. That's why God has created them. They call us forth out of ourselves. To be in ourselves is hell, and to be moving outward to another, which is the whole image of the sexual relationship, and that's what everything is moving towards. The sexual relationship is a small image. It's a small little icon of the greater fullness of reality. And what Thomas is saying here is everything beckons us. Everything that's good pulls us out of ourselves to enter into it. Remember what it said earlier, that when you see something, it imprints itself on the agent intellect, imprints that thing into your intellect. And in some sense, it's within you. So things are always moving within you and moving from without you. And as much as they are good, they're drawing you to God. That's why it's so dangerous to place before your eyes things that are sinful, because they are making an imprint in you. They are entering and putting their seed of darkness into you, so that they can conceive and bring forth lies, deceit, bitterness, and depression, and all those other things. This is always happening as you walk anywhere in your day, in your life. That's why the saints will say this world is a constant battle, but people get weirded out by that, because you can't live your life just... how can you have peace if you're in constant battle, is the point. And that is very possible to do, as long as you understand the nature of the battle, and that's not what we're going into right now, but just to emphasize goodness is calling you out and calling you forth. And evil is also trying to call you out and call you forth. And goodness is trying to enter into you, and evil is also trying to enter into you. Whereby, yet, not as we love, because since our will is not the cause of the good things, but it is moved by it as its object, our love, whereby we will good to anything, is not the cause of its goodness, but conversely, its goodness, whether real or imaginary, calls forth our love. So gradually we're being called to love by the good things of this earth, like the coffee I'm about to have. And as the saints say and the Kabbalists say, our brother Yaakov, the Jews, they say, the coffee becomes holy as soon as you elevate your mind to it. You elevate your mind to God. You say a blessing, and you're elevating your mind, and you're using that coffee no longer as a fleshly pleasure, but as a unifying touchstone in principle between you and your beloved. That's what Teresa of Avila says. The people who travel on the way of prayer, once they get advanced prayer, the things of this earth no longer drag them down, but elevate them. Someone could be dragged out of prayer by coffee if you sink your face into it like a dog, or you could be elevated even closer to God because you're rejoicing and you're using it as a cause of praise and a cause of connection. There's nothing bad on this earth, but in as much as how you use it and the degree to which you use it. Reply to objection 1. A lover is placed outside himself and made to pass into the object of his love. He's replying to that objection. Love, inasmuch as he wills good to the beloved and works for that good by his providence, even as he works for his own. Hence, Dionysius says, on behalf of the truth, we must make bold to say, even this, that he himself, the cause of all things, by his abounding love and goodness, is placed outside himself by his providence for all existing things. I love it when they do that. Getting into deep mysticism there. And Thomas just kind of drops that argument from authority in a reply to an objection, which is kind of unusual. And he doesn't go any deeper in it. And how can you? Because he's expressly said this is milk of the word, and we're not going super deep. Can you guys see the people walking past? It's kind of fun. I don't know if you can because you're seeing the street view, but you're about to see a car pass. Although creatures, reply to objection 2, although creatures have not existed from eternity except in God, yet because they have been in him from eternity, God has known them eternally in their proper natures, and for that reason has loved them, even as we, by the images of things within us, know things existing in themselves. We have images of things in ourselves, or if I conceive of a song, I have that song inside myself before it goes out to the outside world. God also has us within himself and is loving us from all eternity. Reply to objection 3. Friendship cannot exist except towards rational creatures. Excuse me, I have this coughing this morning, guys. Friendship cannot exist except towards rational creatures who are capable of returning love and communicating one with another in the various works of life. And communicating with one another in the various works of life. Unlike your pet, who is by instinct loving you, the pet is not actually rationally loving you because it has no ability to understand what's happening on the higher level of rationality. And it doesn't work with you. Somebody's probably going to say, what about a dog sled? Or what about dogs going hunting? All right, you got me. But it's not building a house with you. It's not writing a song with you. And who may fare well or ill according to the changes of fortune and happiness, even as to them is benevolence properly speaking exercised, even when you're benevolent to your irrational creature. But irrational creatures cannot attain to loving God, nor to any share in the intellectual and beatific life that he lives. Strictly speaking, therefore, God does not love irrational creatures with the love of friendship, but as it were with the love of desire, insofar as he orders them to rational creatures and even to himself. Now you get to see someone pass it. No. Yet this is not because he stands in need of them, but only on account of his goodness and of the services they render us. For we can desire a thing for others as well as for ourselves. God's creating animals and irrational creatures and deer and birds because he's desiring a goodness towards us. That's the ultimate thing that's raising up the chain, but also he's desiring goodness for the thing itself. He does love the little birdie and the little doggy. He just can't love them. They can't love him rationally as we can. Reply to objection 4. Nothing prevents one and the same thing being loved under one aspect while it is hated under another. God loves sinners insofar as they are existing natures. He's loving their nature. Remember, we talked about horsiness and dogginess. And, well, we have humanness. God loves human nature. He loves the nature that he created. He has the divine image that he has created for this person that he made. He loves them as existing in their nature, for they have existence and have it from him. Insofar as they are sinners, though, they have not existence at all, but fall short of it. And this in them is not from God. Hence, under this aspect, they are hated by him. Remember what Thomas's big move is, saying that evil is a deprivation of good. So evil, remember the paper I showed you when I poked a hole in the paper? God is aware of the hole, but the hole is nothing. Evil and sin is actually an absence of being, because remember, being is love. So once you move over into sin, you have really twisted being itself into what it is not and turned it into something it is not. You've made it into knots. And so you need Mary, undoer of knots, to pray for you. Ladies and gentlemen, the turning of the page, we'll say, was sponsored by craigkinsey.locals.com, CraigKinsey. Go over there and become part of our little friend group, craigkinsey.locals.com. And I hope you enjoyed this Daily Summa, and I'm going to go enjoy a cup of coffee to add to my morning prayer. Let's see if we can end this stream gracefully.